Fail.
Finally, and we're live. There we go. Welcome to you, the viewer. Our fantastic panel has been waiting for the little live button for like a minute. It's the after dram, and that means it is time to unwind. Put your feet up, grab a cocktail or two, and relax if you could. So, as a quick recap to our evening, we've been speaking with Dr. Don, master distiller. No, master blender. I knew I would do that tonight. Oh, I'm so sorry. Master blender, Hiram Walker Distillery in Walkerville, Ontario. I knew I would mess up. This is the after dram. It's the much anticipated beverage focused portion of the evening. So if we could please do another round of introductions, and please tell us what's in your glasses. We'll do the same thing we always do. So starting off with Davin. Oh, sorry, I'm Dolph. I'm the president of Alberta Scotch Society. I'm your host tonight, creator of the Whisky Book Club, the After Dram. And we're going to talk first with Davin, and then Blair, and then Dr. Don, and then Nick and Kent, and then we'll start this show off if we could. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Davin de Kergommeaux. I'm a co-author on the Definitive Guide to Canadian Distilleries, the book that's taking us across Canada, looking at distilleries from coast to coast. 257 in the book. We're only looking at 15. Tonight, I'm drinking some Hiram Walker Special Old. It's a bit frosty because I just pulled it out of the freezer so I could mix myself a Ryan ginger using some Fever Tree ginger beer and some Tosky cherries. So that's where we go.
That's quite the concoction, Davin. Good job.
Blair Phillips, co-author of the Definitive Guide to Canadian Distilleries. I am enjoying a Manhattan made with this guy here, Larry Robinson. I also have a blend of Weiser's 18 and I think Lot 40 11-year-old following the legacy recipe. Completely different. It's in a hand grenade decanter. It's very volatile, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay. It looks.
Hey, I'm Dr. Don Livermore, master blender of the Hiram Walker Distillery, located in Windsor, Ontario. I'm been working in the industry now for 25 years. My job, basically, essentially, is product innovation and making new whiskeys. And tonight, I got a couple of things. I got a Weiser's Legacy, since we were talking about it in our earlier segment. And then I mixed together, trying to make legacy with my in-home ingredients, a Lot 40 and a Weiser's 15 year.
Thank you, sir.
Hi there, everyone. I'm Nick. I go by Black Hat Whiskey on Instagram and Twitter. I am doing 2 glasses tonight, no cocktail, so I've got Weiser's Legacy and Lot 40 to enjoy.
Awesome.
Hi, my name's Kent. I also go by Whiskey Act. I kind of hacked a cocktail together out of the Lot 40 tonight. A little bit of vermouth, some bitters, and some egg whites. And also, we'll be doing a Weiser Legacy. And then we put mixed together the Lot 40 and the Weiser 15 as well for a side-by-side comparison later.
Thank you. And I'm doing the exact same thing. We have the Weiser's Legacy here, and I have the Lot 40 with the Weiser's 15, which was given to me by a good friend Dave, Yukon Dave, and we're trying it neat, and we're trying it over ice. So we're going back and forth, ice and Ice Legacy, and the Ice Legacy concoction, and the Legacy concoction, and the Legacy, and seeing if there's any kind of combinations that are going to work out properly for us. We'll see. We're going to have fun. And that's what this is about, having fun. And getting back to some articles. It's funny, all the questions, and I sent the questions to all these cats before. I got through half of them, so I threw out the other half. But there's one I did want to keep. So Davin wrote the article that I showed you previously, and he wrote a second article on the same vein. So it was the second part, but it was dealing with the wood. And I'll try to get it here. Hold on. There we go. So I don't have to say. So it was this one. And the second one, I don't have the picture of it. But the second part of the article was dealing with the wood specifically. And the question was, Don, can you explain because in this article you said if you really want to know what wood does to the whiskey, use Weiser's red letter. And then if you really want to know what happens to the barrel over time, Don suggests drinking Weiser's 18-year-old. So these were the two that were referenced in that part. And I'd like to know, Don, if you, well, they told us in the article, so everyone can read the article. And the articles are linked below in the description part of YouTube. It doesn't do that. But it does tell you that if you want to read it. But Don's going to explain. So wood with red letter and time in the barrel with 18-year-old, please.
Yeah, so a lot of it stems with the whiskey wheel that I've created here. And if those are not familiar with the whiskey wheel, certainly you can follow me at CDN Whiskey Doc. And really it divulges into where the flavors come from in whiskey. It could come from grain or from the yeast. But when we come down to the wood section of the whiskey wheel, there's three things that I can play with as a blender. One is finishing it. And we were talking about finishing whiskeys with the Pike Creek from the segment before, but finishing that in a wine barrel or a rum barrel. And I can pull in, and it's called diffusion. It can pull in flavors that way. But the other two things that happen in a barrel is your wood extracts, and that's pulling out the degraded material that's been burned. So that's your semicellulose, cellulose, and your lignin. That's your vanilla, caramel, toffee notes. And the first time a barrel's been used, you're going to get 4 to 5 times the amount of vanilla, caramel, toffee than a once used bourbon barrel. With Weiser's red letter, we use it is base whiskey. There's no rye in it. So really what you're tasting in Weiser's red letter is the wood extracts that are coming in your whiskey. So those are your nice, beautiful vanilla, caramel, toffee notes. You'll get some spicy notes because some of those things that come in from lignin can be spicy. There may be some smoky notes with it as well. That is the epitome of what brand new barrels do. If you really want to see red letter on steroids, I do have a whiskey here. I don't know if we can still get it anywhere. Nope, no, it's not that one. I got to go reach a little farther. Excuse my front here. But right. The one that's red letter on steroids is the Weiser's Seasoned Oak.
Oh.
Well, that's a 19-year-old whiskey. It was the limited release in Ontario, and it certainly has a lot of wood extracts coming into that one.
There's so many limited releases in Ontario. I'm still looking for.
Yeah, I know, but the LCBO approaches us, Dolph. If you know any friends at the Alberta Liquor Control Board and they want to do limited releases, tell them to give me a call.
I do have friends.
But Ontario's very progressive, and they approach us and this is what we want. Can you make it? And we were happy to say yes. So it is driven by the liquor board. It's not us preventing them getting into your market. It is liquor board driven.
I believe you.
We want to sell whiskey. We want to sell whiskey. So.
And I want to buy
a case of everything you make to Alberta just for us.
Each time. We'll buy it.
So, I mean, if you know a liquor board representative in Alberta, tell them to give me a call. In terms of 18-year, that is just pure age. Davin made an eloquent speech before on what happens in a barrel and the reactions, and that's that green apple note that just develops over time. And Weiser's 18-year is a pure base whiskey made of corn, but aged in a used barrel. That's what's different between red letter and 18-year. 18-year is all about that aging reaction in the whiskey and bringing out those green apple flavors to the forefront, whereas red letter is those vanilla, caramel, toffee notes on freshly burned wood.
And the 18 is also just the base whiskey, no rye at all, or barley.
It's straight corn base whiskey. Yeah, no, it is designed. I almost say that's the taste of angel share. The 18-year is the best way to describe it.
No, I thought that was a great idea, and in the article it was great as well. And I was thinking as soon as I read it that I'd like to have them both side by side. I will get some red letter from someone.
If you come do blending 101 with me, you'd certainly get an opportunity to do that.
There we go. Another reason to go.
Yeah.
And Davin, in this same article, you talked about diffusion, and I'd like you to talk about diffusion a little bit more in the process. So, could you tell us how much this can influence the final product and maybe suggest a whiskey that you could buy, just like the top two we just did, that gives you a great example of diffusion of the cask into it?
You know what? I'm going to just say three things, and I'm going to turn it over to Don, because this is actually, in my opinion, the height of Don Livermore's whiskey making art is diffusion in Pike Creek. Talked about how Brooke Laddie, they bought when they bought Bruichladdich, they inherited a lot of really very flat whiskey, not very good whiskey, and they put it in wine barrels to diffuse the wine out. Those barrels a dry wine barrel that's been empty would have 6 or 7 liters of wine soaked into the wood. Remember, that's wood is like a sponge; it soaks it in. They put it in the whiskey, and the wine soaks out. And I think the best example you could find of diffusion is Pike Creek, any Pike Creek. But the 21-year-old Oloroso cask is really spectacular. Don, I think you probably could talk more about how it diffuses out and the way this affects the flavor.
Yeah. Imagine your diffuser at home, right? I don't know if you have diffusers that put those essences in the air. Yeah. Same thing. Diffusion is just simply this: molecules want to go to equilibrium. We would not survive as human beings if molecules did not want to go to equilibrium. So what happens is the wine, in terms of Bruichladdich you're naming here, or the Pike Creek Oloroso, the sherry, are spun like a sponge. It's in the walls of the barrel. You put fresh whiskey into it, it's just going to come to equilibrium. That's it. And all it takes is about 200 days for that to become, and that's diffusion. Most of us in the whiskey industry describe that as finishing it, but the proper scientific word is actually diffusion, if you go to a science book. I want to take one other misnomer, okay? A lot of people will say, well, I want my whiskey aged in this Oloroso barrel. It has to be at least 5 years or the entire life or whatever the case may be, because we want to bring in more of that sherry flavor. No, that's not what's happening, right? What happens is the diffusion occurs in 200 days. What they see is concentrating up is just the evaporation loss in the barrel. That's
and you do talk about that.
You're not bringing in more flavor from the barrel of wood. That happens quick. It's then the evaporation effect that you're seeing afterwards.
And you talk about the 200 days and the 2 millimeters all the time. So the ultimate char for your whiskey is 2 millimeters.
Yep.
And 200 days after that, you could do it, and you do age stuff for more than 200 days. But
but the thing is, by law, we have to. But you got to remember the green apple flavor, the oxidative reaction that Davin talked about earlier. That is just linear. It goes in time. So you got two things happening. You got the diffusion, and then you got the oxidation, which is. And I love Dave Broom. He always described it as a point of maturity. Yeah, a point of maturity, not so much age, right? Because you got a couple of things that are happening all at the same time, right?
Excellent. Thank you very much. That's just one of the questions that I didn't get to before, and I thought was fairly important. And we wanted to start the this after Dram with this one here. Here, I'll do this so I'm the only face that's kind of mixed up. So this is an article by our very own Blair Phillips, and we were talking about Canada's rock stars, and we're doing that because we did have a tasting. Right here. We did it with Dr. Don, and you can see a Canadian Whiskey Dog. Virtual tasting of 45 of my friends, Alberta Scotch Society. So this was a fun night. And we had 3 of these rock stars in it. And here, there's I'll give you that one. Oh, let's look at that. We had 3 of those, and it was great. It was really, really fun. I'd like to ask you a couple questions, if I may, about that, please, Don. So, We've often talked about the alumni series, but I didn't know you were a hockey guy. I didn't know that you were a coach. I didn't know that you were a referee. I didn't know that you had a love for hockey. So I'm wondering, getting these guys in, was that a you thing, a marketing thing that you jumped on top of? How did that all come about?
Our marketing thing, certainly a marketing thing. One of our marketing people was on the GO train with Glenn Healy in Toronto. Okay. And Glenn Healy is the president of the NHL Alumni Association. Yep. And they had a conversation on the way to work one day. And hey, why don't we raise money for the NHL Alumni Association at the same time as launching whiskey? And that's what the program's all about. That half the funds that are the profits of the sale go to the NHL Alumni Association, which helps ex-hockey players that end up in trouble. And a lot of them spend an entire career to become a hockey player, and then all of a sudden their career is over. And they support one another, and it's a great program. And Glenn is certainly a champion of it. Great personality if you ever get to meet Glenn. He is. And it really is a sobering moment to just spend time in the room with these guys. Each of them has their own personality. and I get the sense they lit up like a Christmas tree. They talk hockey all day long. And they talk about the stories. You talk about Daryl Sittler talking about his 10-point night, or Guy Lafleur talking about his days with the Stanley Cup and the Montreal Canadiens, or Larry Robinson, or anything like that. But when you got them opened up and talking about whiskey and a little bit of different thing, what great personalities and champions and mentors these gentlemen really are to the game of hockey. And I can't say enough. And I got stories with all of them. It'd take us more than an hour, but they were all great, and they all made their own whiskeys. They went through the blending 101 with me, and they made their own unique style to how they played hockey. Is really what the attempt we were trying to do.
And Blair said they didn't really want to talk about hockey at all.
I probably said the same thing to Blair. Yeah.
Nothing. All right. And you know what? Maybe that's a book you want to read. You like writing? You've read a dissertation. You can do a book. Why not? Done. A book about your time with the hockey guys and their stories, and you can make stuff up too. Wouldn't matter. It'd be fun.
But that takes me away from my day-to-day making good whiskey.
All right. So how about I write the book? I'll be your ghostwriter, and I'll make stuff up, and I'll go meet these hockey gods. It'll be great.
Leave the book writing to the guys that know how to do it.
Okay. Davin, Blair, keep doing it. Write a book, guys. But here we go. Here's a quote from them. So Livermore was their whiskey coach, helping each player develop a whiskey that matched their on-ice style. So I really like that quote, tell you the truth. And Don, you guided them in their choices, but you also added, and we talked about this before our Alberta Scotch Society one, but the Easter eggs, because you and I online, we did Paul Coffey for something. I can't even remember. So many times we've been online. I think it was an Instagram night. We did that. Anyways, did you have, and I didn't ask you this, did you have this in mind to put the Easter eggs before they came to see you, or did the idea develop as you spent time together?
As we spent time together. Paul Coffey, I believe that one was at 48% ABV, and he scored 48 goals in 1 year.
And 77 is what he had, and he had 7%
of
and
a bunch of
7
different
stateside.
Yeah. So we worked on the theme 7. Hey, you wore number 7, or we wore 77, I think, when he was in Detroit. I swear Paul Coffey could still play hockey today if you ever met the guy.
He's in better shape than me, so probably. I try, but I'm sucking wind.
Yeah,
I'm going to go through the 6. I'm going to go through the 6 and tell me if I'm missing any of the Easter eggs that's in it, if you remember any. So Guy Lafleur, smooth guy, so smooth bourbon, kind of influenced Space Side barrel and rum barrels in 10 years, because 10 years is his number, or 10 was the number he wore. Was there anything else with Guy Lafleur?
Was smooth, and Guy was my childhood hero. And I
Me
said to Guy, I said, Guy, I have a jersey of me as a child that's probably about 8 years old with you on it. He kind of gave me a small smirk, and then he said, let's get back to the whiskey. That's where I said he didn't want to talk about. He actually flew a helicopter to the distillery.
Oh, nice. That's cool. My story with him is the same. My dad I lived in Montreal. He was my hero. I wanted a jersey, just like the book that talks about the jersey. My dad got me a Daryl Sittler one. So, which is, if you didn't know, so he's a Toronto Maple Leaf. So I'm a kid in Montreal, Dolph trying to act like the French kids around, playing hockey with the English thing. I got beaten up. It's horrible. Anyway, we'll go back to another one. Lanny McDonald. Okay, so he's from a farming family. So it's pot distilled wheat, and reminded him of his childhood. And it's in, there's the Lanny McDonald. 9 years, his number's 9. And I liked him too. Daryl Sittler, you already told us about this. 10 points in one game, which is the most, still a record. 6 goals and 6% rye, 4 assists, 4% wheat, and 10 years old because of the 10 points. Am I missing something from that, Blair or Don? Because I'm referring back to your article there, Blair. This is not me. It's all you, Blair, that I'm quoting. No? Okay.
I think that's it, Blair. I'm looking at Blair because I remember answering the questions to you when you asked me that. I think those are everything on that one. And he was a nice man too, from St. Jacobs, Ontario. I actually grew up in that area, and we had a great conversation. We had lunch together actually. We had a great conversation of Midwestern Ontario. Nice man as well. Lanny McDonald could be your uncle. He's a genuinely
him for nothing.
nice person. I mean, he actually sent us a note congratulating us on the hand sanitizer. And this is a year and a half past when he blended the whiskey. Because JP Weiser, yeah, I mean, he personally sent an email and a note on that. He is just the nicest person you'll ever want to meet. If anyone get a chance to meet Lanny McDonald, still has the mustache, by the way, too.
Oh, does he? Well, and you see him in Calgary every once in a while, and because he played in Calgary, and I was a fan. I was living in Calgary when he was there, so I have an affinity for that man. And I missed out on getting a bottle signed by him when he was in Calgary, because that's something that most of these guys did. They went to different stores, and they had signings of their bottles.
Lafleur's was lined up. I mean, literally. I mean, they had to put a stop to it.
Well, I would have taken the day off of work, I think.
And then I heard that Dave Keon, he overstayed, I think, 2 hours in the Toronto one.
Nice.
And a nice man to be able to do that too. And he really loved his whiskey. He actually came in with a little. He flew in from Florida, and he came in with a napkin, and he says, "Oh, I like this 18-year-old Scotch. Can you make this?" It's like,
Did he make
I can't make Scotch for you, but I can make something for you. I thought we came pretty close. I really like his whiskey. It was pretty good. But.
Excellent. Blair, I'm going to ask you for Wendell Clark, because all I have for Wendell Clark, he was bold and tenacious, and they have that on the bottle. Pot column distilled rye. And this was my hardest one. I'm not going to say who here got this for me, but I'm forever in his debt for getting me this bottle. Thank you very much, kind person. I'm not saying who, but thank you. Anything else? It's 41.6. And did that mean anything, Blair? Do you remember? Or Don?
Yeah, think about who he played for. Toronto, right?
Yeah. Oh, the area
code.
Don told me that already, and I forgot. Sorry, Don. I should remember these nitpicks. Thank you, Blair.
And he was not, and you saw him as a player. He was rough, and that's what when I met the guy, I said, "Oh man, he's tough. We got to make a rye whiskey. He's bold, tenacious. He's a little bit of he's an introvert."
Really?
Yeah, and that really blew me away. And I've talked to people after that they've met him before too, and I guess that's his personality. He just must change when it involves sports, because I remember him a little bit as a fighter, tough guy. The Leafs could use a little bit of that right about now.
In the corner, he was deadly. If he had a kind of hate on for you at the moment, or he wanted to change the game, he would line up the hit too. He was nasty. He was
and everything.
But he was fantastic. He could score.
Yeah, but I mean, he was a very quiet person.
Well, his whiskey is really good, but if you told him it sucked, he'll cross-check you.
Right in the chops.
I lost 3 chiclets already. I don't know.
All right. And the last one I'm going to do is Larry Robinson. So he was number 19. So 19% ex-bourbon, Canadian casks, recharred barrels, Caribbean rum casks, port casks, and French oak casks. 6 different woods for the 6, or barrel types for the 6. For the 6 Stanley Cups. 6-year-old whiskey as well. Am I missing something? Because
that seems right. And he was very cerebral. I would say about him. He was very bright, very smart person, and he was really, really into fine-tuning his recipe. And lovely man. I can understand why he was a GM of a team for sure, and a coach. Lovely man.
And here, I just want to throw up. Oh, there's more pictures. And Messier, he's not part of the first one though. He's part of the second group.
Yeah.
Which I loved a lot.
Yeah, so, Mark Messier that's a fantastic one as well. We put that one at 47%, right? Yeah. Which is 94 proof.
40. Yeah, 94.
Why did we put it at 94 proof?
Number.
The funny thing about this article was that this was written for a British crowd, and when I sent Davin my first draft, and he was like, they're not going to get this, because I was going on about like this whiskey's going to cross check your palate and score a hat trick and all this kind of stuff like that, and Davin's like, no, this you have to remember this is a British crowd, so I had to kind of dial back a little bit, and so when you read it, and there's a lot of explanations on what a hat trick is. That's because of the fact that the UK, which is a football country, would be more in tune with it, with just those explanations.
Okay, but Hockey Talk's good. We all understood it. Because the article was in Whiskey Magazine.
That's right.
Explain to me why it's for a British crowd. Is it that's the base? That's
Well,
most people that buy Whiskey Magazine.
Well, no, it's published in the UK, so I think a majority of their subscription base is from the UK.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I thought they were an online only.
No. This is a magazine. It's been around for, well, I just finished sorting mine. I have the first 168 issues upstairs, and I bought them all legally at the store. But it's a British magazine, but it's published in 5 languages. So it comes out in French. There's one in Taiwan, and there's a Spanish edition, I think, and an Italian edition.
German.
It's all over. Is there German? Maybe they're German. Yeah. It's all over. But it's based in the UK, and that's where they do Scotland Magazine and Gin Magazine, and it's Paragraph Publishing that does this. It's all UK. And if you know the CEO, Damien Riley Smith, he's very, very British. And but that, I tell you, that's one of the difficulties working with Blair as a writing partner, is that so much really, really good stuff has to go somewhere else because it can't find its way into these articles. That's one good reason to write a book with them, because honestly, if you read through our definitive guide and you laugh, you can be pretty sure that started out with Blair. He's really got an amazing sense of humor and kind of in tune with pop culture.
Well, Dr. Don,
as far as talking hockey goes, I have to admit that I've not, when they expanded beyond 6 teams, I lost interest. Because I was always a Boston Bruins fan. When they went beyond 6 teams, I thought they're selling out. So honestly, I couldn't even tell you who won the Grey Cup the last 3 years.
And not going to happen.
And nobody's going to win it this year, Davin. I'll tell you that.
No Grey Cup.
No Grey Cup.
Well, Don, I did
do a whiskey show with what's the guy, Bettman? What's the guy who's
Gary
Bettman?
Yeah, I did a whiskey show with him in New York, and
wow,
he liked Canadian whiskey. He was very into it. Yeah, we did a Canadian whiskey presentation, and they invited 100 New York journalists to come to the Canadian consulate there. And Gary Bettman was one of the speakers, and we poured whiskey for all these journalists. Got all kinds of articles, and it was really good. I think it's the only time I've ever been in a Canadian embassy that I didn't have foreign affairs handling everything, so that by the time you get there, everything's politically correct and perfect.
Well, Davin, I have to get you liquored up a bit more so you can tell me all these stories one day, because I always get these little snippets of this and that about playing the guitar in these seedy places and the exotic dancers. And then
I'll tell you something now, because I'm deep into this. I used to play with Chris Christopherson.
Really?
Okay? That was a guy. Yeah, we played at the Bitter End in New York. We played at places like that. Yeah, music was my first career, and didn't work out that well. Lots of fun, but not much money. Yes, lots of those old guys that you've heard of.
Okay.
Well, Dr. Don, can you speak French?
Pardon me?
no.
Can Dr. Don speak
No,
French?
I can't speak French. No.
No. Well, yeah, because Davin and I wrote an article for Whiskey Magazine in France, and I'm looking at it going, I have no idea what, like, yeah.
You could hook me up. You could just send it to me. I'll tell you, I'm good.
Yeah, so you can tell me
Google
if
Translate. It's called Google Translate.
No, you lose so much from Google Translate. My students tried doing that too. They read a book report in English and then transfer in French. You can tell. It's horrible. Don't do that.
Everything's backwards.
What were you getting at there, Blair?
Oh, I just when you look at the article, like, wow, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
I'm sure it was.
I know I've had some of the whiskey guys in Germany write, and there's a fellow that I correspond with quite often, and I tell you, Germans are want the most technical articles. They want to write technical as much as they possibly can. And Heinz is a gentleman that I deal with all the time on that, and lovely man. And the more technical you get and geeky, they love it, and they love reading this stuff.
You know, I remember
yeah.
I had a good conversation with Richard Patterson once, and he had done this big presentation, and these German guys come up to him and they said, "You said it had a long finish. How long was it? How many seconds was it?" And Richard Patterson says, "You can't say it was long because it was 45 seconds or 71 seconds.
75 seconds.
In everybody's mouth, it has a different time. Long is different for different people because some people will lose the flavor right away, and some people will go on. You'll have it there for. I mean, you can wake up in the morning and still taste the Ardbeg you had last night. You know, and he could not. It was like they were both speaking English, but it was like two different languages. Like, I'm sorry, you guys. If I put a number on it, it's going to be a different number in your mouth. And I remember him. He was almost like he beyond. Like he couldn't control himself. He was just like they just don't understand what we're talking about with.
You almost gotta say it's longer than this.
Longer than, yeah.
Longer than, yeah.
I'll give you 10 things. This is where it is.
Yeah. I have my
boiling an egg.
Yeah.
So Blair, Davin, you want to write something in French? Call me. I'll help you out. I'd love to see the article before it goes out, and then I'll put something in that will. No, sorry.
Yeah, well, a lot of
I'll put something in to embarrass you. I wouldn't do that.
Articles do get translated into other languages and published in other whiskey magazines, like French and Taiwanese. I've got quite a lot in Taiwanese in whatever language match. I guess it's Chinese in Taiwan Whiskey Magazine and Spanish.
Dolph, can I ask a question?
Oui, Mr. Livermore.
If you're asking a question, I'm going to ask a question. This is for Davin and Blair. What's your vision of whiskey writing in the next 5 years? Blair, maybe go first. How do you see it going in the next 5 years? In terms, what? Yeah, I see the sigh.
Oh, with this virus you're talking?
The virus.
You're literally on the spot.
How do you see publishing going, or what do you see the trends, or how's your audience want to see whiskey articles?
Man, I have no clue. I'm stumped. I know Davin has very strong feelings about this, so we should defer to him.
I'm thinking
I'm going to make a comment, and I'll see if it's. Let's see if this sparks it. I don't think we want to continually see the same people telling us how the whiskeys taste. I think people are a little bit
done
beyond the tasting notes. I think we want something else. I think we want personality, and I think we want a link.
Well,
or tell me I'm full of crap. Go ahead, Davin.
No, you're right, because Davin and I, we started this series, Davin? Maybe like, 7 years ago?
I can't remember. Long time ago, yeah.
And it was all based off of not how the whiskey tastes, but we try to find a story that we can drive through the whole entire, the story was the most important thing. We didn't care about the tasting notes. The tasting notes you see on the sidebars were just part of what they need as part of the article. But the most important part for us was telling the story and having fun with it.
Yeah.
What the whiskey tastes like if you go back and read all our articles, even the new ones, we don't really get into what the whiskey tastes like. You can check that stuff out in the sidebars to see what a whiskey tastes like. But our stories are all about the adventure, the stupidity we get into, and what the whiskey is trying to achieve.
I agree with you on the tasting notes, Dolph. And I remember at least 10 years ago, maybe more, saying, people just don't want endless tasting notes, and they're kind of meaningless. But one of the things that's kind of bothering me lately is that there are a lot of people who really don't have a very much breadth of experience in tasting whiskey, who are publishing tasting notes on blogs and things like this, and people are saying this, and worse is that they're just like echo chambers for each other, and very much so, and also like stenographers for the PR people. If somebody says a whiskey tastes like this, you'll hear 10 people will discover that. And I remember the one I remember is somebody said something about how Talisker explodes on your palate. This was in a PR piece. It came out from a PR firm, and about 20 people found out, discovered on their own that Talisker explodes on your palate. That's a bunch of horse shit, you know, but it sounds great. You know, I mean, it's nonsense, but it sounds great. And I think that tasting notes it's becoming difficult because so many people think, you know, I've tasted 3 whiskeys now, I should start a blog. And so you're getting a lot of writing that is really kind of loud, and people talk loudly, but they really don't know what they're talking about, you know. And I think that this is going to go away. I think, Don, that writing is going to become more and more online, like whiskey magazines. On Dolph, you thought that was an online magazine.
Yep.
The online is there to support the print edition. I think that more of it is going to go online. I think that people are becoming a little bit fatigued with some blogs and things like that, but or with some podcasts and things like that, and people run out of energy too. And the amateurs who are doing this, I mean, we used to say the half-life of in whiskey is 5 years. After 5 years from now, half of the people who you hear from are going to be gone. You won't hear from them anymore. They'll be doing something else. And it's really, I think, shortened down now, even 3 years. And you get these guys, they come out with real great guns for a year and a half, and then they have a baby or they do something, and they disappear. And next thing you know, they're, you know, writing about golf and retirement homes or things like that. So, I think for the professional whiskey writer, the guy who does this as his job full time, I think that they're looking for new outlets. They're really looking for new outlets, and I think a lot of it is online. The problem with publishing online is that this has significantly decreased the pay. You know, it used to be, you know, you could get $3 a word to write an article 20 years ago. Now, you know, a good publisher pays you $1.20 a word. You know, but a lot of these online places, they pay you like 30 cents a word. Great. I mean, you've got to write a lot to make any money at that kind of a rate. That's why people do shows and things like this. You know, and there's so much noise out there that's going away. The thing that has really impacted us has been social media. People getting on social media, and I'm telling you, I can't tell you how many stories we have lost because the person we interviewed then went on social media and did what you know, and told the story on social media, and the editor said, "Hey, I'm not interested in that anymore. It's already out there." You tell us something that our readers will not have heard 2 months from now, 3 months from now, and it becomes really. I mean, that's the competition. If people want to get into the magazines, and that's where the credible writing resides. I mean, social media, whatever influence you have today, is gone a week from now. You know,
I got a follow-up question to that then, Davin, and
okay,
maybe
go ahead.
you can answer it here too. Who is going to police it?
No one polices it. This is the Wild West.
Yeah,
it's free for all. You know, but.
Do you think it'll police itself?
Yeah.
I don't know. I remember at the Canadian Whisky Awards a few years ago saying, you know, if you guys are going to go on Twitter and tell us everything that's going on with all your brands, everything that's, you know, forget about getting into Whiskey Magazine. Our editor specifically, Don, I should tell you this. At one time, we had a cover story about Don Livermore for Whiskey Magazine. It was all set to go, and even the brand had bought advertising to support it. And you went on Instagram and did this great big Instagram thing, and the editor said, we'll still do the story, but we're not doing Don Livermore. Why? Because Don Livermore had been all over Instagram, and what are we going to say that's new? What happened?
Overexposed, Don. That's
overexposed. So what happened next? And we said, okay, Christ, they've already bought advertising, and that advertising is not connected to the article. The article is going whether you had advertising or not. What are you going to do next? We said, well, we've only got a few weeks left to go. we'll do a story on Spencer Gooderham and Warts, and we'll start in Windsor. We'll follow him as Gooderham and Warts brand followed him to Christ. We got that done, and the next day he went on Mark Bylock's show. That article was dead.
Yeah.
It was gone, and now we had to get a cover in, and we had to get a story in. We had nothing to do. That's why we did the story on Ross Henry, is because he was the only one left who hadn't been blathering all over social media, and that got out there, and that fucking killed. That really killed me, because you know what?
So it's a little bit short-sighted.
Right? The thing is, but the thing is, the magazines are competing with social media, and the magazines don't know how to react. I think we could have done a good, legitimate story on Don Livermore that would have been new and different. But no, our editor over there, he's gone now. He said, like, there's no chance you're getting that guy on the cover of our magazine. And it was just, I'm telling you, I damn near cried over that one. I was on the phone to London, not to London, Norwich, saying, like, what can we do? What can we do? And there was just no hope.
That's really unfortunate.
So the future of publishing is, we've got to find ways that we can still bring forward stories that have not been told on social media. And social media is killing us. The blogs really were hurting us for a long time, because if it's been on the blog, we're not interested in it in a magazine. And the fact is, like, as I say, I've got Whiskey Magazine going back to 1998 upstairs. And I was reading through. I read a beautiful story on Mike Booth. I read a beautiful story on David Doyle and how he developed Weiser's legacy and things like that. That stuff would be gone if it was on social media. So I think that, and the problem is that, like, some of these they bring new marketing people in every year, and they seem to be younger every year, and they all think social media. You got to do social media. You got to do social media, but they forget that you've got to save some stuff for the for the legitimate channels, because if it doesn't.
He's reading the book.
Channels are books like this, and they're large articles. Right. And there's something that you're not going to get out of maybe a 1 hour broadcast or a 2 hour broadcast. Yeah. And you know what? I would have loved to have seen the article, because that would have given me more information to actually have asked Don at this point.
Well, how would you like to write the article and then not be able to publish it, and then write the next article and not be able to publish it? Okay, and then finally have to just say, Christ Almighty, and man, we got like 2 weeks, and and we're publishing, and I don't even have a frickin' cover. What am I going to do? You know. And by the way, you got me into this.
Don, you asked the right question.
I think it's a pertinent question. But it is an issue to the industry. That's why I ask it. It is an issue.
But some of the publicists, the publicists who have been around for a long time, understand that you don't feed all the news to everybody. Yeah. There are certain writers who get privileged access, and they write stories that people read, that get hundreds of thousands of impressions, that last, that are in paper. They're in libraries. They're filed in digital retrieval systems and things like that. Like that article you pulled up on Whiskey Magazine, still out there, you know.
But so that's important, because not everyone's going to have access to that or know how to do that. So Don has done research, and he knows how to research. You and Blair both knowing how to research. And Blair, no more babies for you, by the way. We discussed that. Davin said you can't have a baby and keep writing, so no more babies. You're going to keep writing regardless. But it's the type of atmosphere as well. People want information really quickly, and they're going to go to the easiest source. And often it's YouTube now, and it's Twitter, or it's Instagram, or it's something like that. But I'm going to change gears a little bit, because I don't want anyone to get too mad at each other. I'm going to ask the same questions of Kent and Nick. So where do you think it's going? Are you happy with what you see online? Because we all do. Us three, we do watch a fair bit of people online, and we get a lot of information online. Are we okay with the information? Do we like what we're getting? Where do you think it's going? I'll throw that out to both of you.
No, I don't like what we're getting online, because we're getting fed sound bites. There's no context to a lot of it, and it can be really superficial. So you're forcing me, if I really want to find something, to dig and not giving me any direction. I was going to make a comment too to what Davin was saying with information coming up on Instagram. It's up there for such a short period of time, and then it's gone. And if I'm looking for something, I want to be able to go back to it consistently and refer to it much like a book and say, oh yeah, I remember this. And I want to go back and refresh my memory on a topic or on an element as I'm exploring a new whiskey, or I've got another book and I'm comparing the knowledge from this. Social media doesn't allow any of that. It's that instantaneous 5 seconds and then it's gone. It's more frustrating, I think, some days, and I ignore it, honestly. Some days I just ignore it and go, okay, I'm not paying attention because it's not giving me quality. And I do search for quality now.
Good. And I agree. And it's the ease of the research. And it's really hard to do research in that type of forum. You can find it. I've gone to Don's Instagram and gone back and back and back and found the picture of us with the Alberta Scotch Society. But it's not the same thing where you can find an article and look at the article, or if you've read the article, you know intuitively where it is. It's not the same. Kent, what do you think, buddy?
I love social media. It's a pointer at best. It gives me a direction to look at something that may not have been on my radar initially. And it's like, oh, I haven't heard about that. I should go and investigate it. At that point, I want something a little more in depth. I want to be able to read a story. I love, Dolph, I mean, how many links did you send us for tonight even, right? And another one. But you know what? We read through every one of them. And every story was it was neat to read, but they were, even at that, they were almost too short. And I wanted a little bit more curriculum. I wanted a little bit more to chew into it. But the fact is, honestly, I met Don last year at our tasting. I had no clue who Davin and Blair were, until we started doing our social media thing. And Dolph says, yeah, I got the writer. I was like, great, who is this guy? And then I started to meet him. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, my book's over there. But, this has been one hell of a video journey for us. And you've cost me a crap load of money buying Canadian whiskey.
And that's a good thing. And I'm glad I did.
It's a great thing. I'm literally 2/3 of my purchasing budget has now gone to Canadian whiskey over Scotch or otherwise. But even with that, I mean, I've found out about bourbons and gins. I've been doing a lot of cocktail stuff on the side lately, and I know, Blair, you love your gin. I'm not a gin. That juniper, I cannot stand sucking on a pine tree at all. It's just not me. But yeah, and Davin too. Oh, Davin, your gin.
Davin likes the juniper. He likes the tradition.
Anyway,
I do like juniper. Yeah.
Oh, I don't. But Empress gin is amazing. I am making most of my cocktails with a gin, and I've never ever. A year ago, I would say not a hope in hell. But that is all directly related to our book club and tasting notes and Blair writing our cocktails. Well, what's a cocktail about? We've got a group around here that they do a lot of cocktails. So we started following them. They got us started in it. I have a cabinet full of bitters now. I'm starting to make my own bitters now. We wouldn't have had this if it wasn't for social media, because this is stuff I wouldn't have read in a book.
So, Kent, can we still go back to what Blair said and say it is some other type of connection that you're looking for? You're not looking for tasting notes. You're not looking for the big push to the new thing. You're looking for some type of connection. Although the connection might be brought about by some committee or some 2 or 3 really smart people knowing how to manipulate me, they still know how to do that. But anyways, Dr. Don, thank you very much. Those were great questions.
I think at the end of the day, honestly, I think Blair said it right. It's the storytelling.
Yeah.
I agree.
Storytelling. I mean, and it's more about the technical nuance of whiskey. It's the stories and the people behind it. I think, and it's that experience, the taste, the touch, the feel, the emotional experience, and I think that's what connects whiskey to everyone.
Yeah, and not to sound
Yeah.
and not to sound like a hypocrite, but when like on CanadianDistilleries.com when we reviewed this beautiful whiskey, we do touch on tasting notes, but we try to find like a more of a high level tasting note where we get the general impression instead of deep diving into like a 3,000 word tasting note. We're just looking for the general flavor profiles of the whiskey and how it connects to the story. So,
and that article you talked about, I put it on my LinkedIn account, and lots of people I could see click through and view that article, and it was such a great storytelling. When a master blender meets a winemaker, what happens? I mean, and I think that's the end of the day. People just want that nice story when we're talking and enjoying our products.
I think that's 90% of the whiskey. It's the story behind the whiskey, right?
Well, we're going to get to this right now, specifically. So, Blair, you wrote this article, so the legacy, and you do have tasting notes in this, and I actually have like a mini paragraph that I'll read, but that was out of my 4 pages, just a small paragraph. So it's a section of it, right? And that's how I think it should be. And it's a thought to the side. It's what people are looking for. My question for you, Don, though, is I went to get this on purpose for this. So I drove a little ways, got it so I could distribute it to friends. And then Kent found his, and we got Nicole hers. And many of our friends that are online are drinking this tonight. But I do want to know the genesis of it, the name, the idea, and who brought this one to life, please.
Yeah, so it was the previous master blender, Dave Doyle, as Davin indicated. You wrote an article on it. Dave was my boss at one point. And he based this whiskey on a lot of the work I was doing as a research scientist at the time on my PhD. It was our first time actually Hiram Walker, from what I could tell, again, I got the recipe books in behind my camera here, that we were actually playing with brand new barrels, brand new wood. Canadian whiskey didn't do that. We bought bourbon barrels. That's what we did. So we started putting some of our rye whiskeys away in bourbon barrels, and just for the purpose of studying for my PhD, for brand new barrels. And he really made a simple recipe, and it's really our pot distilled rye whiskey aged in brand new wood, blended together with our base whiskey. It's a 10-year-old base whiskey, aged in brand new barrels, and he just simply blended together. It's a simple blend. It doesn't have to be complicated. Dave put it together. They wanted to launch a premium style Canadian whiskey. The LCBO kind of started it at the time. Can you do a premium Canadian whiskey that we haven't seen before? So he decided to, and it was the genesis of making Canadian whiskey in virgin oak barrels. And it is one component's our rye whiskey, the other component is our base whiskey, and he just simply put it together. And it's simple genius on Dave's part, to be honest with you, putting the two components together. And it doesn't have to be complicated. I could put 140 whiskeys on the table, but 2 ingredients can just make the best whiskey going too.
I would start.
I don't know. Did Dave say anything else to you about it? I mean,
well, you know what? It's kind of interesting because I just reread that interview with David Doyle today, and what he said is that the marketing came to him and said, "We want to put out a 100% rye whiskey," and Dave said, "Well, we already tried that with Lot 40; it didn't work." What he did is he blended 1/3 Lot 40, and he blended it with base whiskey, if I remember.
Yeah, and that's what it is.
With corn. Double distilled corn. He blended it with that, and it was quite a remarkable thing. And that's what he came up with, and of course it was a big hit. And there were several editions. A legacy came after that, but this. You talked about how you were maturing that rye whiskey in new oak for the first time.
It's an Hiram Walker for sure.
Partly as a basis of a basis for your PhD. But I have a question for you then, Don, because I was just absolutely gobsmacked when Wiser Small Batch came out. Wiser Small Batch tasted like candy to me, and that could only be new oak. Did you do that? Did you make that?
I was the blender at the time. Dave was in charge, but I was the guy putting this stuff together. Yeah, Dave was.
So you did you use brand new oak
Yep.
rye matured in new oak to make Weiser's small batch?
A small, very small portion of rye in it, but it was mostly base whiskey for that one. There's more rye in Legacy.
Yeah.
And more age in Legacy too.
Way more in Legacy, but small batch. Honestly, it was like it turned the corner. Like you did Weiser's Reserve before that, if I remember correctly.
And it all started with my PhD. He said, "Let's get some new barrels in here and try this stuff," and that's what we did.
I had never tasted Canadian whiskey like that before in my life, and bring back Weiser's small batch. No, just bring back Legacy. I'll leave you alone.
Small batch is a little bit more of a poor man's Legacy, and less age and less new wood to it. But that's like essentially.
But lots of brilliance to it.
Yeah. But our new wood program has just expanded. So what we started with my PhD there as a young new blender and being tutelaged by Dave, we now got JP Weiser seasoned oak. We did a Hungarian oak and a French oak and all these new different barrels and experiment types. It really started with Legacy. Legacy started it all.
But seasoned oak was Jim Stansky's whiskey.
I was the blender for that, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was my boss at the time. But yeah, seasoned oak was barrels that where the oak was seasoned under the sun for 4 years. It's a gorgeous 19-year-old whiskey. It is phenomenal. Phenomenal.
You're not kidding.
Red letter on steroids.
I picked it because I thought this was more of a passing the torch type bottle for you. Was it?
There you go.
Seasoned oak.
So is seasoned oak more of the kind of passing the torch bottle, or this one? I thought Legacy was the passing the torch, essentially.
I would say Legacy is probably Dave was ultimately in charge for Legacy, but I mean, I was the guy on the counter blending prototypes for him. I mean, he taught me this stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know, he went out on a limb and let's try these types of barrels and these types of casks, and he kept it simple. Now we've even dialed it up, and we wouldn't have if I would have said 10 years ago we would have been getting Oloroso sherry casks in our facility. You kidding me? It was a non-starter. Today, that's what we're talking about. And you guys had opportunities now to try our whiskeys in peated casks.
And we're really happy about it. And kudos to you both for doing
we would have never thought of that stuff. I mean, and it's talking to the writers and talking to you guys as consumers for us trying that. Whether we launch it as a brand, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know whether we will or not. But I mean, I got dozens of experiments that you guys have never seen the light of day.
Well, we're happy guinea pigs. Nick, you had a question, right?
Now I'm learning how much do I tell people.
Tell me.
Question for you, Don. How much stock, because you brought obviously some people with you for that tasting, how much stock came out of our opinions on that? Because it was I found it very overwhelming that everybody was like, yes, we absolutely love the Lot 40 in a quarter cask peated. Yeah, there's the picture. So does that pull any weight with those people? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to try a bunch of things, but somebody above you is going to say, yes, we're going to produce this, or no, we're not.
I don't know. Maybe Davin and Blair can comment on it too. But for me as a blender, I think the best attribute is being a listener. Yeah. I mean, we go to Whiskey Fest as writers or as people that stir behind it, and shame on us not for listening to what the consumers want.
So my next question is, what would it take for us to get our own batch of Lot 40 quarter cask peated, sent to Alberta?
You get talk well again. Then becomes my. You guys talk about editors and stuff. Our constraint becomes the liquor boards, right? Some liquor boards are way more receptive than others. And like the Pike Creek 15-year we've had tonight here, Blair, the LCBO is a lot more receptive to our brands and products than other liquor boards, and that's really what it comes down to.
And from what I heard, it is pretty open as well. We have a lot of.
I know you guys are open, but we want to be able to sell 1,000 cases.
My cousin in British Columbia, referring to things such as the LCBO more open, calls this on terrible. because we get everything and they get nothing. But you know, I think that you asked about the influence of whiskey fans to the new whiskeys that are coming out. And I think that, you know, when you consider that Canadian whiskey sells a couple of 100 million bottles a year, of which maybe 500,000 go to real whiskey fans like us. You have to the real consumer you have to listen to is the average guy in the street who doesn't know the difference between Scotch and Irish whiskey. Because
right.
you know, the bottom line is the shareholders want to see profit, and you don't get a lot of profit catering to the whiskey elite. The money.
It's not only the shareholders with our company; it's also with the liquor boards too, Davin.
And the liquor boards, yeah, and the liquor boards, yeah. And you know what? If you go walk into a liquor store in any, well, except for maybe not in Alberta, because you have specialty liquor stores that only sell top high end whiskeys and things like that. But if you stand at the cash for 10 minutes, you're going to see at least 2 or 3 bottles of Wiser's Deluxe go out, and you may not see anything else from Wiser's go out of the store in that 10-minute period. You know, you'll see a lot of vodka. You might see some Captain Morgans and stuff like that. But, you know, and the thing is, I mean, making whiskey is fun for us, but it's a business, and they're only in business to make money. And if they're in business for any other reason, there's something wrong with them as business people, you know? So I think that fans can influence what's going on, but if the blenders and the distillers and the marketing people listen too much to the hardcore whiskey fans, they're going to be looking for work before very long. Because, you know, the bottom line is that when the company looks at sales and looks at profits, they're gonna say, you know, you guys didn't do it. I've seen this happen in a big company where really wonderful people. Honestly, I remember meeting a guy like 18 months later, and he was still crying over being fired. But guess what? He brought out wonderful whiskey that I loved, and that the average guy in the street was not willing to pay the extra $2 for.
Yeah.
Because most whiskey is sold based on price.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to make it better, you have to charge more. And if you want
why
to charge,
flavored whiskey is popular.
that's why flavored whiskeys. But you know what? I have to say, I love one certain flavored whiskey because my wife does, and it means Janet and I can sit by the fire and dram together, and she's drinking hers and I'm drinking mine, which more often than not is that or. I'm sorry. I don't know. I just think you kind of hit the ball out of the park with Gooderham and Worts. Yeah. The regular Gooderham and Worts.
So it's tough. I know you want a certain thing, Kent. Yeah. And it's delicious as hell. And I agree with you. But at the end of the day, how many people want it? That's what we got to ask ourselves.
If you accidentally send 6 bottles to Alberta, you will make sure money hits your pocket.
But would you buy 12,000 bottles? Because that's 1,000 cases.
What's that, Nick?
Do we have time for one more question?
Yes, Nick.
Quickly.
Okay, so I guess it's to Dr. Don, Davin, and Blair. Are we seeing this drive to the heavy-duty single malt whiskey fan of convincing them to go back to blends because that's what's being dictated by the market, and as you said, that's what's selling? Or is it a wake-up call that there's more to the whiskey world than just the single cask strength, that these blends are absolutely phenomenal? And that's a bit of a kick at you too, Dolph, because you tend to do single cask and you tend to shy away from the blends.
Yep. I love my blends, but my single cask strength, those are my favorite. And I will always.
But Dolph, the single cask is exactly where Blair hit the nail on the head. That's the storytelling that you're getting bought into.
Yep. The marketing people are sucking me in there, Don. I'm just. Ladies and gentlemen,
But it's the story you can tell. This is came from a single cask, right?
yeah. No,
Yeah.
and you know what? It is a glorified situation where it's a moment in time, and everyone likes that moment in time. And it wasn't a marketing person that did that. This is something that we've all bought into forever. You pick something up, you pick up. It's a situation with a friend. It's a drink with a friend. Everything has a link, and it's
That's
all
the
that.
part. Blair hit the nail on the head. It's the storytelling part of it.
When you go back 5 years ago, probably nobody here would look at a single cask because they were typically subgrade. And now you're going after the single cask because of the story.
Oh, come on. Single casks were fabulous 25 years ago. Do you remember when we reviewed this book? What did I say was the most important ingredient in the whiskey?
The
Most
story.
important ingredient in whiskey is the story.
Story, yes.
The story.
Absolutely, Davin. I can't agree with you more. And I think we got great. I think as Canadians, we got great stories to tell. And
We've got wonderful stories, and we've got liquid to back it up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think
Ladies and gentlemen, we've hit the 105 mark. We're going to do last comments, and we're going to start Davin, Blair, Nick, Kent, and then we'll finish off with you, Don, if that's all right.
Sure.
All right, Davin, you're up.
Hi. Thanks very much, everybody. This has been a wonderful evening tonight. I just want to remind you that we started out following this book. We're already into our second dozen in sales, and we'd love to see you pick up a copy. It's a guide to all the distilleries in Canada with maps, how to get there, where to go next, 257 distilleries. In any case, take care, and we'll see you next week.
Michelle, you're going to see me on Friday.
Friday. See you Friday, yeah. Stillwaters.
Yep. Pick up this book. Read about Don Livermore and his great whiskeys. That's it.
That's it. John. And Nick.
Definitely, you know what? If you've been following along, you need to have this book and you need to have more Canadian whiskey on your shelf. And don't shy away from the blends and the flavored whiskeys that Canada's producing. They're amazing.
Excellent. And Kent.
So everybody was wrong. You need to start with this book and then this book, because this book will tell you the history of everything that is in this book. And honestly, this is a great book to follow. And we are looking for a road trip with this book, and we've started on that. We did BC, but without the understanding of where it all came from, you can eat both books. Just do it. You won't regret it.
And Dr. Don.
I would say my books are on my tablet, which I don't have on here.
Perfect.
It's been a great pleasure. I thought there was a great discussion. I think, quite honestly, with the Canadian whiskey category, we need to have more discussion like this. And I love debate, and I love philosophy, where whiskey going. I think we are, and I said it earlier, we're the most innovative, creative, adaptable style of whiskey there is. I love playing with this category. Certainly pick up Wiser's Lot 40, Pike Creek. Certainly support the men and women. We got 350 of them working for our company that do a great job every day. I can't say enough about them. And we do have some award-winning whiskeys. If we have a whiskey for you, whether it's a flavored, a blend, straight rye whiskey, that's the best part about Canadian whiskey. And certainly those out there, please follow me at CDN Whiskey Doc. If you wanted to follow the life of a master blender. And thanks for having me on tonight, guys. I really appreciate these moments, and they're the most memorable and part of building Dr. Don's story as well.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for being here. It's fantastic. The one thing we didn't do is compare the Wiser's legacy with the concoction, which was 2 parts 15-year-old and the 1 part Lot 40. And I'm going to tell you, they're both great. Although the legacy, I really do like the extra spice at the end, and
I like the legacy better. Yeah,
I do. Sorry. So I'm there. I'm there with you, ladies and gentlemen. This has been a memorable episode. Another memorable episode. So here's the good company. Here's the good whiskey and whiskey concoctions. Here's the good books. Here's the good conversation, and here's to seeing you all Friday. Yeah, that's right. Friday, August 21st, 7 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. We will be visiting our 11th distillery, Still Waters, in Concord, Ontario, with co-founder Barry Bernstein. page 205 in this book. So I hope everyone had as much of a fun time as I did. I love the conversation. I love when Davin gets riled up. I really like that. That was a comment on the side. I love seeing it. I love seeing the passion. It's good. Ladies and
Did I
gentlemen,
have too much to drink tonight? I was drinking a fair bit of special oil tonight.
Nice.
blame it all on me. No matter what happens, Davin, I'm here. It's
It
all
was
on my.
Ball's fault. He made me drink
I did,
more than I should have.
and I want to do more. I need the stories, Davin. I need all the stories. Cheers, everybody. Have a fantastic night.